When the red, red Robin comes bobbing along, there'll be no more sobbing when he starts throbbing his own sweet song. Wake up, you sleepyheads, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Hello and welcome to this week's Robin Pod Weekly, which is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre, the only car specialist trusted by the club officials, players and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. This week, Scott Solway joins me to discuss Rovers' round 4 defeat to the Warrington Wolves, and we look ahead to the round 5 game against the Huddersfield Giants. Before we speak to Scott, though, let's hear from lifelong Robin Craig Eskrett and friend of the Robin Pod, as he provides us with an update on his battle with M&D, and he tells us what it was like to watch rugby league in Las Vegas. Craig, welcome back to the Robin Pod. It seems like ages since you was last on it. Of course, you're just fresh back from a trip to Vegas. We'll talk to you about that in a little while. But first of all, Craig, how are we getting on, mate?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. First and foremost, yeah, I'm doing okay. It's been a bit of a bumpy ride over the last probably 7 months now, 7 to 8 months. As you all know, about my M&D journey. But yeah, I'm in good spirits. I'm a bit tired still from the Vegas trip. Still catching up with me, but I'm trying to get as much sleep as I can.
Yeah, one of the main reasons as well, Craig, for getting you on the Robin Pod is I know you're super keen to raise M&D awareness after your diagnosis. If you turn the clock back a little bit, tell us how your diagnosis came about and some of the symptoms that you experienced that led you going to the doctors and getting checked out.
Yeah, well, it was in the September 2022 when I was at work and kind of was getting taught how you know if it was like an ACL injury, because obviously in my job we do a lot of sport and exercise, and my thighs were actually just twitching, and at the time I just thought it was a bit of muscle fatigue, because as well as doing fitness at work, I enjoy my fitness outside of work. And later on that year, so November, December, January, got into January 2023, I started waking up with cramps in my lower legs, especially my right leg. And again, I just thought I'm probably doing so much, so I changed my training up a little bit. And it wasn't only until kind of going into 2023, early 2023, I noticed when I was doing the sport at work, I felt like I was losing a bit of balance and I was falling over a little bit. I couldn't stay on my feet. And I kind of just put it down to me being a bit clumsy, probably a bit naive, to be honest, because, I understand my body, and I kind of just kept putting it off. And it was only until, I was playing a game and I went to kick the ball and I felt like there was no strength. And again, I was losing balance really easy, and I just kind of knew something wasn't right. But I remember after the game I played, I was getting questioned by staff saying, is everything all right? You was falling over a bit easy. And I was like, I think it was my footwear. It was probably the pitch. I remember going to gym that night thinking, no, I need to get myself on a treadmill just to kind of see if I'm falling over, on a treadmill. And I started trying to run on the treadmill. I remember my foot just seemed to be dropping. And I remember going home thinking, you know what, I need to ring doctors. I need to get myself checked out. So I rang doctors, got myself in, and they referred me to a physio. At first, it was going to give me a 𝗬𝗂𝗏 injection, because I thought it was something to around my hip area. And when they'd done certain tests and strength tests, she asked me if I'd noticed anything else. And by this point, it was probably the March, April time, I started getting twitching in my upper body. And so I explained it to her that I was getting twitching in my arms. And she there was a look on her face to say that she knew it was something else, but she wouldn't she couldn't say. So she referred me back to another GP, and probably talking another month down the line, I ended up getting checked out by this GP, and again did certain tests, and he basically said, you know, like, I need to send you to neurology. It could be something quite serious, but again, I can't tell you because I'm not 100% sure. And in this time, like, I felt good, like, mentally. At the gym, I'd started to notice that I was getting weaker with certain exercises that I was able to cope with, and I started to feel more tired. I knew I was losing weight, and obviously, come the August time when I'd seen my neurologist, he was like 75% certain, you know, that I had MND. And at the time when he told me, obviously I've got the 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗏 book. I know what MND is because of 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗀𝗏 and the work they're doing. And I remember just sat there and I kind of went blank. I couldn't process it. And it was my missus who was just like, no, it can't be. And I said to her, like, MND? And soon as she said it's what 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏's got, I remember looking at a neurologist. I said, no, it's not. I said, what's the other 25%? And he said, well, it could be something to do with your spine. It could be a tumour. So I was like, wait, it's got to be one of those. So then, obviously, I got sent for tests. I was lucky enough for work paid for one of it's called a nerve conduction study, which basically, it does tell you whether you've got MND or not. There was a 6-month wait on the NHS. So luckily, work paid for me to go private, and I was seen within 2 weeks. Then, obviously, a couple of weeks later, I got the news through the post. So, sorry, Chris.
It's all right, mate. Take your time. Honestly, mate, it's you know, it's big, isn't it? I always think, you know, things like MND and other conditions and stuff. It's always what somebody else has got. It's always somebody else. So when, you know, you always see it as being over there. It's not going to affect you, and the fact, obviously, you're active, you're fit, you're healthy, you know. And as men as well, we're always guilty of, you know, downplaying things and thinking it'll be something else. So, you know, take your time, mate. Honestly, it's what's come across though is obviously like the 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏's book and you know, raising awareness and how you managed to obviously take this devastating news, which is, you know, there's no skating around it, is huge, but you turned it into a positive as well, and you've not felt sorry for yourself. You've done something about it positively, and you're banging the drum. You're trying to raise awareness whilst also coping with the fact that you're living with this, mate. So it's great to see that you're still about and active, but of course it is hard for you to process as well, I expect.
Yeah, you know what? It was when I got the letter. It was the more I spoke to people, that's when I started to process it, and I was angry, frustrated, and I remember turning around to my missus and I just said, "It can't beat me. I won't let it." And then when went back to the neurologist, and he said, "Look, it's the most common type, like the ALS. It's like you're looking at 2 to 5 years." I remember walking out the room and I literally said, if he thinks I'm doing 2 to 5 years, he's got another thing coming. So straight away, something just clicked. And I think because of, you know, the work 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝘀𝗻 𝗏𝗏 had done, I drew inspiration from that. And it was like, right, I need to get it out there to try and help people. You know, not everyone likes rugby league. Not everyone knows 𝗲𝗂𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗻. And so for me, it was trying to do something that's a positive to help people in the local community, and try and fight this as best as I can. And to be fair, the more I've done, it's helped me give a focus. It's helped me focus on the positives of getting out there, helping people, and it's kind of like, for me, it's just a bit of a drive as well. It keeps me going.
Yeah, I suppose, mate, what highlights it as well about why raising awareness, raising funds, continuing to bang that drum, why it's so important is that if work hadn't have paid for your test, you'd have been 6 months on the NHS. which is further time, isn't it? That potentially is being wasted because you're not able to do about it because you don't have the diagnosis. So I know there's Kevin Sinfield and a whole range of people are raising thousands, millions to research into MND and hopefully find a cure one day. But it's important that, I think they're raising awareness of symptoms so people can do something about it if they get an early diagnosis, but also continuing to raise that awareness that government, the NHS, that they need to be taking it seriously as well.
Yeah, and that's it. It's Kevin Sinfield, Rob Burrow, they've been like kind of campaigning and getting out there in the media for long enough, and sometimes you can just think, what are the government doing? That's the frustrating part for me. But you know what? It's about everyone coming together. You don't want to you don't want to have the diagnosis of MND. But once you're in it, the family and the support you get with it is unbelievable, and you can't thank people enough. But we're all driven, and it is to find that cure. And there's some people, unfortunately, they're not able to raise awareness because of their own conditions and their own journeys, and you kind of like you're doing it for them as well, more so than yourself and your families. But yeah, I think for me, raising awareness for symptoms, like you said, I've always been into my fitness. Some people aren't into fitness, and if there's symptoms like, for example, the twitching, if that can just, for me, help someone, and you know what, it might be nothing, but I'd rather them get checked out sooner the better, because I feel like because I knew my body, I got checked out a lot sooner. So, and like you said, with the 6 month wait, it's unfortunately the NHS, it's not great for sometimes things like that. You've got to wait, and that could have really affected my mental health, because I would have been thinking over and over again, like, what is it? I'm getting worse. Like my right leg isn't great at all. So yeah, I was fortunate about that. But yeah, for me, it's about raising the awareness, getting the symptoms out there for people who might have similar symptoms to just get checked out.
Yeah, and I suppose, Craig, I mean, for you, it's not letting MND define who you are. You've got your young family, you've got you've got interests, you've got hobbies. You are not, MND isn't just you, is it? So I suppose whilst you want to concentrate on doing something about it, you've still got so much left to live, to give, and then away from MND. So I suppose it's just, it's not Craig MND Eskrett, it's Craig Eskrett, and yeah, you've just got this condition that might slow you down with something, but you're still able to live your life, and you've still got so much you want to do. And I mean, you're coaching under 7s rugby, and the fact that you've just been to Vegas as well, I suppose that's really important for you.
Yeah, and I think, again, one of the first things, I said to everyone, like my family and friends, is I don't want people to feel sorry for me now. I am who I am. I'm always going to be me. So don't treat me any differently. And like you said, there's things that I still want to do. There's things I'm doing, which again, it just gives you a bit of a boost in morale. And coaching the under 7s rugby, it's great. It's great to see kids improving, and that's why I do the coaching. There's things like going to the rugby, going to Rovers. It's my passion. I'm not going to let what I've got get in the way of that. I can still go to that. I have got a young family. There's certain things obviously I can still do with them. There's things that I can't, but I learn to adapt quickly as well. And I think that's what, I suppose that's life. We learn to adapt to different situations and scenarios. Like, for example, I'd love nothing more than to be able to go running on like a park, but I can't do that. So I do it different ways to make sure I have fun, especially with my boys. And whether that's just me, like, for example, at the gym, I can't go on a treadmill, but I can go on a spin bike. So it's always looking for little different goals that can keep me going. And like I said, yeah, I'd just come back from Vegas, and it was a bit of a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, tell us a bit more about that, Craig. I mean, if people follow you on social media, they'll have seen some of your pictures, and huge rugby league fan, of course, Hull Kingston Rovers super fan, and you got to meet Mean Machine while you was out there as well. I mean, what was the whole experience like, and then getting to meet Clint Newton as well?
You know what? It's the experience out there was unbelievable, and I don't think people will understand until they go themselves to experience it, of how amazing the whole trip was. Like, we was there for 5 nights, and we got to meet Clint Newton the day before, luckily just by bumping into him into a casino. And, you know, like I've always said, for me, Clint Newton was my all-time favourite player, and wow, you know, he still is. And I think he's, for me, the best overseas signing we've had him in my time of watching Rovers. And you know what? He was a genuinely down-to-earth guy. He had a picture with us, and then before we went, he said, you know, he asked us to stay because he wanted to thank us and the rest of the Hull KR fan base for the way they treated him. He said he felt like he was at home. He appreciated that we welcomed him with open arms, him and his family, and he's always got like a special place for Hull KR. And you know, when he said it, there was like a lot of emotion behind it, and you know, he didn't need to take the time to say that, because we'd take him away from his game that he was on in the casino. But you know, that was a special moment, especially more, like for me, because obviously I hold him in like high regards. So, but no, that was great. And then obviously the next night we went to the game, and yeah, it was just brilliant. You know, I think sometimes from the UK, especially me, I have the opinion of Americans, they go too far-fetched, you know, with the entertainment side of things. But when you're in it, you get it. And, you know, they couldn't have done it better. I love the whole experience, you know, the 2 NRL games, the entertainment, the stadium was brilliant. Meeting fans, there were some American fans that was sat in front of us, and they couldn't understand about the collision, saying, is it like this every time? Like, is it throughout the full game? It's like, yeah. And they started asking more questions about penalties, you know, why is that penalty? And they got really into it, and, you know, they stayed for the 2 full games. Yeah. And so it was like, you know, they've done well to kind of like create a market there for Americans. There was a lot of Australian fans there. There was a good number of Super League fans there, especially from like both Hull clubs. There was like Wigan, a London Broncos fan was there. We'd seen Leigh fans talking to a few Leeds as well. So yeah, it was a really good concept. And you know, whilst I was out there, we'd seen the article around maybe Super League clubs going over. I would honestly, if it was Rovers, I'd get it booked as soon as, because yeah, it was an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, I do think that it's perfectly set up for the World Club Challenge to be played there. You know, you think about it, you know, neutral country, the opportunity for the best of English or the best of Northern Hemisphere rugby league to go against the best of Southern. And I think that sells it to the Americans as well, because they love a world series or a world challenge, don't they? So the fact it'd be the World Club Challenge, you know, who knows, Craig, come the end of the season, it could be Hull Kingston Rovers in the World Club Challenge. I mean, we dare to dream, don't we? What are your hopes for Rovers in 2024?
I'm hoping for us to actually win some silverware, go one better than going out the Super League, obviously the playoffs. I think that's got to be the aim for this year, because we've done so well last year. So there's an expectation on us, probably from within the club, from the fans, the media. So yeah, I'm hoping. I know it's been obviously 50-50, 4 games, we won half the games, but I like the way we are building. You know, we went to the Warrington game, and you know, there's not been many times in the past few years where we've walked away from games saying, you know what, we've lost, but on another day we could have easily won that. And I think that's how far we've kind of come. Like, you know, we dropped the ball, was it a couple of times over the line? You know, in better conditions, they stick. So I think we, yeah, you know, it's kind of like we've got new players. It's going to take time to gel, but when it gels, I think we will be very, very good. And we'll be looking at the top end of the table. That's what I hope for, anyway.
Yeah, Scott Solway joins me later on in the Robin Pod to look back at our defeat to Warrington and preview the Robins' trip to Huddersfield. I suppose, Craig, we've hit maybe a little bit of a bump in the road, but I remember what 𝗲𝗂𝗱𝗴𝗏 said at the start of the season about making sure that every game that we're in it, so whether we get beat or whether we win, we're never going to be up there or down there. We're always going to be consistent, and you only have to look at Wigan to see how they've managed to do that over the years to maintain that consistency. And I suppose we're not going to see, Craig, this season blow away scorelines, but also I don't think when the Robins get beat, we're going to see them absolutely out the game. The only frustration I've had, Craig, over the Salford and Warrington game is that we just left ourselves a little bit too much to do by letting them running a couple of scores, and I just don't think you can afford to do that this season in the Super League, albeit apart from when you probably play, your London, your Cass or Hull. I think every other game is going to be a battle. So anytime you let the opposition build up a healthy lead, you don't want to be chasing it, do you? You don't want to be chasing the game, and that was my only little bugbear over them 2 games. Yeah,
no, I completely agree with what you just said, and I think, you know what, like the Salford game, obviously we watched it when we was in Vegas. It looked like it was more like of a discipline issue. We're giving penalties away. You think you cut out there, you win the game. Yeah. Against Warrington, I think, if I remember rightly, it was probably 𝗀𝗽𝗲𝗏 offloading the ball to Ryan Hall. They get the scrum. The score from it. There was a try, 2 tries just before half time through sloppy defence. You just think that they tighten that up.
Yeah.
Then we're going to go well. Like, I was frustrated. Oh, don't get me wrong, because the game, we'd won it. We lost it ourselves. But thinking, that frustration when I just saw, we're tightening up these little areas. We're going to be okay. But like I said, I think every game is going to be close. And it's going to be then fine margins around discipline, just maybe falling off a tackle that can win you or lose you the game.
Yeah. And then fine margins, Craig. I was going to say then fine margins are not helped sometimes by the fact we don't have an out-and-out goal kicker at the moment. I mean, what have you made of 𝗲𝗂𝗱𝗏𝗏's decision to experiment with, we've seen 𝗪𝗏𝗄𝗏, we've seen Litton, we've seen 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗏, all attempt to take kicks. 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗏 seems to be out of the picture now. He doesn't seem to be anywhere near. Obviously, we've seen Jez Litton, what he can do. The issue we've got with him is whether he's on the pitch for 80 minutes. 𝗪𝗪𝗏 looks like he's someone who can kick it. Whether he can do that on a consistent basis is yet to be seen. So we've got a little bit of a conundrum there, haven't we, about who becomes our kicker. And one player who I'm surprised not being mentioned more about kicking and potentially being our kicker this season is Mikey Lewis. I can't see why he's not in the frame for kicking duties.
Yeah, you know what? It was this was something I thought in the pre-season is, who's going to be the kicker? Because I'm looking at recruitment, and you're just thinking, well, obviously 𝗂𝗂𝗃𝗏 was named kicker, and then obviously what happened at the derby, and just thinking, oh no, it's going to be another season of torture with the boot. But then it's difficult, isn't it? Because you've got someone called like 𝗪𝗏𝗏 who was on the bench, and you're thinking, when he's on the pitch, the qualities he brings. But then you're taking Jez Litton off, who is your kicker? I think actually used to kick at Wakefield. And I know he did okay at Wakefield, but it's so frustrating, because they can win you and lose your games. Kickers, yeah. We've known this for a long time. I think 𝗪𝗏𝗏, when he was on the podcast with yourself, he said pretty much the same thing. And yeah, it's so frustrating because when Litton's off, you're like, well, if we get a try, and it's out on the wings, who's going to kick it?
What worried me, Craig, was when 𝗲𝗂𝗃𝗏𝗏 said that in the Salford game, he actually brought Jez Litton back out onto the pitch just in case we got a kick. And you're thinking you're changing your whole plan, your game plan to accommodate a player just to kick the goals. And that's not a territory we want to be in, where you're having to resort to doing things like that. So, I mean, hey, we've got Huddersfield up on Saturday. We'll see who's in the frame for that, whether it's Lytton and Bachelor dovetail. But then I don't think that helps either of them in terms of getting that consistency.
No, I'm not saying it's the consistency. You know, you need your kickers on the field. Just going back to like Michael Lewis, I don't understand why he's not getting a shot. Because I'm sure he's been a kicker before. I don't know if he was at York and he was the kicker. But yeah, it's that is a worry, and that's, you know, going forward. You know, I spoke about being at the top end of the table. You know, we've got to have them players on the pitch to be consistent, to be at the top of the table. You need players performing week in, week out. But like, the kicker is so important. You know, the Salford game, you saw Max Sneyd. I can't remember him missing one. And it's the same against St Helens. He didn't miss a kick. You know, they're going to win the game, and you know that's frustrating as a fan. And I think, moving players during the game when, you know, they're not injured, that's also a bugbear of mine. So yeah, we'll see what happens at Huddersfield. But for me, you need your best players on the pitch, and one of them players is Jez Lytton, who was kicker. But then, what do you do with 𝗦𝗢𝗏𝗏? Because for me, he's so good, you can't afford not to have him in the team.
No, and he shouldn't be missing out just based on the kicking responsibilities that somebody else has, should he? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the Giants on Saturday. Craig, I mean, it's been a real pleasure, and thank you for being so honest and open about your journey so far. And I know for a fact you've got the full support of everyone at Hull Kingston Rovers. And I noticed as well you was made a member of the 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃 Players Association. Good to see them throwing the weight behind them. I think Mike Smith said some quite profound words about welcoming you into the group.
Yeah, and Wayne Parker as well. You know, it was something I never expected, and you know, it was quite overwhelming, to be honest. You know, I didn't expect it, and the fact that, you know, they wanted to support me and my family, and you know, one of the reasons, you know, that they said that they knew about my story of going to support Rovers when they used to play, like especially like Wayne Parker, you know, Paul Fletcher, Mike Fletcher, them kind of players, and they said you supported us through some of the darkest times, and you know, now it's our turn to support you. And it's just, you know, some of the things they've done for me already. You know, they had like a charity fundraising night at Tribal the other week, and you know, it was amazing. And you know, they're fully supportive, and you know what? It's just like they text me every now and again just to see how I'm getting on, and like to meet up for a drink, especially before a Rovers game. And you know, it is a family. You know, especially, you know, Hull KR. We've always said it's a family. It's where I met my partner. It's what, you know, I made friends, lifelong friends at Rovers, and you know, whether you're playing or not playing, you know, the reach out to you. You know, I've had current Rovers players reach out, supporting me, and you know, it kind of like, you know what it does? It motivates me to keep going as well. You know, like Rovers did the thing for me for the Leeds game. You know, I think it was one of the sponsors that put me up in their box, and Rovers they asked me if I'd go on the screen to kind of show their support. And you know, it's things like that. It's just like, I always walk away from them thinking, I'm going to beat this now. You know, I've got that extra bit of motivation, and yeah, it's really overwhelming. It's touching, but it's like really I obviously really appreciate. Well, me and my family appreciate, but you know, as well, in a few years' time, it's going to be things that me and the boys can look back on, and you know, we're taking plenty of pictures, videos, and I'm going to make sure like my boys understand kind of what it all meant to me, and the people that helped me for like this journey. So like they know a bit more about like my life and what it was all about, and you know, things like that. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, amazing, Craig. You're a real inspiration to everyone. And let's finish on this, I suppose, mate. some of the symptoms, guys. If you're watching or listening to this, a weakness in your ankle or legs, you might be doing things like tripping over or finding it harder to climb the stairs, slurred speech. You might have difficulty swallowing foods, a weak grip, muscle cramps and twitches, weight loss, your legs and arms could becoming thinner, and difficulty stopping yourself from crying or laughing in appropriate situations. Guys, if you're experiencing them symptoms or some of them, get yourself to doctors, get yourself checked out. Probably 9 times out of 10, it is something completely different, but why run the risk? Let's get yourselves checked out. Craig, all the best, mate.
Thank you. I really appreciate it today, John. Thank you.
Scott, welcome to this week's Robin Pod. Before we go into the Warrington defeat and the Giants game, which is up next for the Robins, how are you doing?
Yeah, not bad at all. Keeping all right, doing good. I'm a bit disappointed at the last 2 defeats. I think there were games that we could have won, but you know, that is what it is. But in regards to myself, I'm okay. I hope you are too, mate.
Yeah, good, mate. Rovers 2 from 4 in terms of victories. So close against Warrington, want we to coming away with the 2 points. 22 points to 20 defeat. We saw tries from 𝗲𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, Hall and Tyrone May. What was your summary of the game? Because it was, in large parts, I think, Scott, played some really, really entertaining rugby league. Other parts, we want on the metal. Yeah,
totally agree. I think it was a bit of a, after the Lord's made show to a certain extent, it's especially when we got our noses in front of 2018. I just think we need to play a bit of sensible rugby there. And I think there was a couple of times we had a couple of brain farts, didn't we? And in the second half especially, I mean, I'll say at the end of the first half, letting Warrington score them 2 tries right at the end of the first half, that probably was a bit of a breaker, especially when, you know, we got back into the game a bit. But second half, I don't remember Warrington being in our 20 that often, apart from when Duffy scored his try, which came off one of our errors, you know, and an unforced error at that as well. You know, so I just think a little bit more sensible rugby, and we'd have come away with the win. We might have won by 2 points rather than losing by 2 points. So it's a bit disappointing, really.
Yeah, just cut a little bit there, Scott. Yeah, all good there, mate. Scott, you just cut out a little bit. Obviously, disappointing to lose by that scoreline. And like you said, there's a few brain farts, weren't they? We did see some good spells rugby league. But for me, the biggest frustration, Scott, was our way that we let the opposition build up a scoreline and then we ended up chasing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Rovers all over, isn't it? Chasing games.
Game. And these early rounds of Super League, once a team gets a sniff of going in front, Scott, welcome to this week's Robin Pod. Great to have you back on the show. First of all, before we go into the Warrington defeat at home and then Giants up next at Huddersfield, how are you getting on, mate? You okay?
Yeah, not bad at all. Doing okay. Plodding on with life as we all do, don't we? Yeah, all good. Hope you're okay too, mate. It's just nice to be back and talking a bit about OKR again. It's always a pleasure to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Where are you at with Rovers at the moment? Because the 2 from 4 in terms of victories, and yeah, we've seen some frustrating parts of play. But on the whole, the Rovers seem to be getting their act together. But obviously, you know, if you're realistic, we're not going to win every single game. Whereas I think some supporters think every single game the Robins are going to win. But for me, I'm optimistic. What about you?
Yeah, optimistic. I think then, as you mentioned there, apart from a few brain farts in the Salford and Warrington games, I think we've been there or thereabouts. We probably should be 4 from 4, if we're being totally honest, apart from a few errors here and there. But you're right, we're not going to win every game, but it's a bit disappointing to have lost the 2 that we did in the manner that we did. Especially, you know, I think what happened back in the first half with Warrington last week. The 2 tries were conceded just before half time were tough. Second half, I don't really remember Warrington getting an hour 20 that often, apart from Duffy's try towards the end that won it for them, and that came off one of our unforced errors as well. So we're making the errors even in the first half. The 2 tries that they scored, I think we knocked on, didn't we, in our own half, on our own 30 or something like that, and they scored from it. So it's nothing that can't be rectified. It's things that can be put right. It's just a little bit disappointing because I actually thought in the Salford game and the Warrington game for long periods of both of those games we were the better team. But yet we ended up on the wrong end of the scoreline, which, as I say, can be rectified, but it's something we need to put right. We need to get rid of all these brain farts and unforced errors, I think.
Yeah, and I think Willie Peters has said that these early rounds, I think the first 6 rounds, it's about playing basic rugby league, feeling the way into games. And for me, though, you can't let the opposition build up a lead, especially in these early rounds. And we saw the Salford game and, of course, Warrington last week. They ran in 2 tries after 13 minutes and the Robins are left chasing the game. And they've got the ability to do it, but it's not a habit they want to get into, because we've seen it all too many times with the Robins, haven't we, where over past seasons where we've let the opposition build up leads and then we've never been able to recover from that.
Yeah, and again, last week we did recover from it, didn't we? We went 20-18 up, and then you're just trying to think, a little bit of sensible rugby and, just a little bit more cohesion in our own sets of 6, and, we could be okay here. But then I think we threw it, was it the Gildat and Ryan Hall? One of them made a break and tried to throw the ball inside, knocked it on. Warrington get the ball and go and score from it. And you're thinking, I think that was the first or second tackle as well. Trying to do a power play on play 1 and 2 when you're 20 points to 18 up with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. It was just a bit of a brain fart, So just little things like that, but things that can be rectified at this stage of the season without a shadow of a doubt. I still fear for us with the Salford game, Sneyd putting the kicks in behind us, and then George Williams did it last week as well. I think our reaction times in defending short kicks and behind will look a little bit ropey still, and that's always been a bit of a bugbear for us, I think, over a few seasons. But again, hopefully we can rectify it, and it's things that can be worked on over the next few weeks without a doubt.
Yeah, Warrington, like I said, opened the scoring, George Williams and then Matty Ashton, but the Robins responded through Tyrone May. I mean, what a take it was to get under that high ball and pick the pocket of the Warrington defender and go over for the try. And that pretty much started a bit of a purple patch for the Robins in that first half. And they seemed to get on the front foot from there. And they really took the game to Warrington. And that, for me, that was one of the best spells of rugby from the Robins during that game. Ryan Hall follows that up with a dirty offload from Gildat. I mean, I think Laffey's getting a bit of praise from Salford for his offload in round 4, but Gildat's was every much just as good. And it was great to see Ryan Hall and Gildat link up like that. But Tyrone May's try, Scott, and then the Hall try as well. Fantastic pieces of rugby league.
Yeah, great pieces of rugby league. I mean, when the bomb goes up for Tyrone May's try, you're thinking, wow, who's taking this? But I don't think Duffy ever really fancied his chances, did he? I don't think he got off the ground, to be fair. He didn't even leave the ground. I didn't realise that May had that kind of leap in him. That was a superb take. And then to get the ball grounded as well with a couple of players around him, was a real good effort from him. Great try. And as you say, I thought Hall and Gildat really showed, again, especially in the Warrington game, what we can expect of them too this year. Some of their play was superb. The understanding between a centre and a winger on that left side there was really, really good for a lot of the game. And as you say, the ball from Gildat to Hall was absolutely sublime. Absolutely sublime. So was 𝗬𝗓𝗔's in the derby, wasn't it, when he gave it to 𝗬𝗆𝗆𝗏. That was a great offload as well. We've got a couple of decent centres there who can certainly find a pass if they need to. And it's brought Ryan Hall 1 try closer to Danny Maguire's record, hasn't it? So he's sniffing around a bit now.
He's chasing him down, definitely. 𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗏, he followed, I think it was 32 minutes. 𝗪𝗏𝗏 goes over the line, goes to place the ball down, and it just slips out of his hands. It was a greasy surface, wasn't it? But for me, that was a time when, if he'd have scored that try when Rovers were really in the ascendancy, that not saying he could have put the game to bed, but it really stamped our authority on the game. And for him to miss that, and then that be followed up with a Conor Rensch try just before half time. I suppose where we talk about missed opportunities and not being able to take our chances. That was a really key spell there for the Rovers.
It was massive, wasn't it? I think if we could have gone in 8 points up and then we ended up going in down. I mean, the turnaround was just ridiculous from that. I guess if you make an error like that, and you know, as you said, the ball was greasy, it was wet, it was a horrible night again. If you make an error, you've got to then back it up defensively, haven't you? And I don't know what happened there. We just seemed to lose our heads for just a couple of minutes, and before we know it, we're going in behind when we could have been going in, you know, 8 points up. Maybe we're going in behind, you know, and you're just thinking to yourself, it's just little things, the tiniest things that can just switch a game, can't they? You know, fair play to Warrington. I mean, they capitalised on it. You know, Wrench got in behind us again and scored. And it was Warrington are a good side, very good side. I thought they played. And what was their completion rate? Something like 94%, wasn't it? Something ridiculous. Yeah. In those conditions, it was just crazy stuff. But I just think if we were a little bit more, you know, just a little bit cleverer with the ball, we win the game. And I don't think it matters what Warrington do. I thought we lost the game rather than Warrington won it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I totally agree, and that's what I put out just after the game. You know, it very much felt like, as good as 𝗬𝗂𝗏 was, don't get me wrong, you know, they did manage to control large parts of the game. I just don't think Rovers did themselves justice, and you know, we're talking about bombed opportunities. After half time, Mikey Lewis races clean through. All he's got to do is offload it to Litton, or even I thought it'd be better off maybe just putting a chip through along the surface, and because there's a couple of Rovers players chasing that, and the ball goes to ground, and you think, you know, are we going to be able to get on the score sheet and recover from being down at half time? Thankfully we did, but that was another example, Scott, of where it just didn't click for the Robins. But for me, you know, when you look back in the call like today, it's almost a positive, because we're getting closer to seeing these players come off.
Well, without a doubt, and that's why I'm glass half full, because I think we're still a team in progress. It's a brand new span, near enough, you know, within reason, you know, and all these players are learning each other's games and trying to understand the players and, you know, where each other is on the pitch and things like that, you know. So I'm not downbeat about it. We're 2 from 4, but we could be 4 from 4, and we're only going to get better once these players, you know, start to understand each other's games, and, you know, and they start to gel, you know, with each other. So I'm not downbeat. Disappointed that we lost a couple of games, but as I say, you know, we move forward now, don't we? We carry on. We keep doing the things that we're good at, because, as you said, there were long periods in that Warrington game where we were very, very good, but then there were other periods where we looked like we'd never played together before. So it's things that can be worked on, things that can be dealt with, things that can be worked on the training ground, and we will. We'll be good for it. We'll be okay for it. I'm sure.
Yeah, and there's 2 passes, Scott. Absolutely, my passes of the game. The first one was from Mikey Lewis, who passed out to Ryan Hall for him to link back inside to 𝗀𝗽𝗲𝗏 for him to go over for a try. I mean, for me, Mikey Lewis, man of the match. I thought he was absolutely fantastic against Warrington. 19 carries, 204 metres, an average gain of 11, 7 tackle busts, a try assist. We saw him popping up at hooker on a few occasions, and when he did get the ball at hooker, he seemed to speed up the game for Rovers, and Warrington were left reeling on a number of occasions from Mikey Lewis. Just seems to be taking the bull by the horns, and what I saw as well, Scott, Mikey Lewis is actually 6th out of everyone in Super League for dummy run carries, which is amazing, really, considering he's a halfback and not a hooker. He's actually done more dummy run carries than Matt Parcell, which is, you know, when you consider that. So, yeah, great pass from, and then the second pass, Scott, Tyrone May to 𝗀𝗏𝗄𝗏. I mean, the ball just seemed to hang up in the air for so long, but the accuracy, and he put it on a plate for 𝗀𝗏𝗄𝗏, similar to how Mikey Lewis put it on a plate for Ryan Hall, for him to then be able to pass back inside. But them 2 passes were absolutely exquisite for me. And
they have to be on point, don't they? They have to be on point, those passes, because they're so easily interceptable. You know, just the right weight, that, you know, the right power. If anything's off, those balls are intercepted by opposition centres and wingers, and they've gone. So they have to be absolutely on point, and they both were. What great balls they were. Mikey's to Ryan was sublime, and then his ball inside to 𝗀𝗽𝗲𝗏 to finish it off. But I thought the Tyrone May pass to 𝗻𝗂𝗏 was something else, wasn't it?
Yeah,
he passed it
I was going to say, Scott, as well, what I admire is the bravery. Like you said, quite easily, quite easily the balls could have gone out of play. How many times have we seen it where people throw these looping passes and they go out, or you risk the interception? And you know, we've seen that with the pacing Rovers side, we're probably not going to catch anyone who makes a break, other than 𝗦𝗡𝗆𝗆𝗏. But yeah, two fantastic players. And I don't know, what did you make of Tyrone May's performance? Because I thought on a few occasions he seems to get caught out on the last play. I don't know. Obviously, part of Tyrone's game is that he's a little bit off the cuff, and he'll feel his way in the game and do what he feels is on. I think sometimes that's hard for the rest of the team to play off, because they don't know whether he's going to chip it through, whether he's going to put a high bomb, whether he's going to run it himself. And there's a few occasions where we just seemed a little bit rudderless, not necessarily because the game plan was wrong, but when May took it, that the rest of the lads were a little bit hesitant to see what he was going to do. And on a few occasions, you know, the ball was kicked through and we ended up defending it rather than getting an attacking play on.
I think some of our last set players were certainly second half, especially when we were sort of chasing the game a bit when they went in front again. You know, with the last 5 or 10 minutes, he's putting them little kicks over the top, and nobody seemed to know what was happening, did they? And they were going straight into 𝗪𝗠𝗏𝗏's arms and straight into his breadbasket. And you're thinking, what kind of a last play is that? I'm not sure whether it's Tyrone May. I was having this debate with a few of the lads last week. Is he was sort of like one step ahead of the other players? I don't know. And again, it'll be cohesion again. It'll be something that they have to work on. Were they actually bad kicks, or were nobody just reading what he was going to do, as you've said? I know a lot of them fell into 𝗪𝗏's breadbasket, or they were gathered up towards the end, and it looks as if the last players are really, really poor. But I'm not sure if they were actually that bad, if other players are on the same sheet with him. You know, so
and that's going to come in it, Scott. That is going to come over time. People, you know, that is still work in progress. We're early on in the season. Players are getting to know each other's games. Yeah, they train every day out on the training paddock, but when they get into a match day situation, it's very different. And I think part of Tyrone's game is that he's got that X factor, that unpredictability, where he could have quite easily put a kick through, or he'll throw a dummy and he'll shift through himself and score a try. So, you know, long may it continue, really, because I love that type of rugby league. I think that it's less structured and not everyone's cup of tea, because obviously there's going to be times when he takes a risk and it doesn't come off. But that's, I suppose, if you get 10% of your things wrong, but you get the other 90% right, come the end of it, you're going to be better for it. Rovers, like we said, Rovers 22 points to 20, defeated, completion rate of 81%. You already mentioned it, Scott. Warrington on 96%, which pretty much tells you why they managed to get the victory. They scored.
What I will say, though, is that I thought our middles went really well against their middles, you know. I thought our middles were superb and took it to Warrington's middles all night. And it wasn't our middles that were any of the problem. I thought all our front lads were absolutely game. Considering some of the lads they've got, you know, in Vaughan and Harrison and players like that, I thought our front forwards were superb against them. I really did.
Yeah, it was the same forward lineup from the Salford game, replicated against Warrington. Hadley and Whitbread starting props, Tanganoa and Batchelor, obviously second row. And we had a bench of Luckley, King, Sue and Parcells. So he's going strong, isn't he, down their middles. And to be fair, that's probably one part of the game where you couldn't question Rovers at the moment. They seem to be getting their act together in their middles, and they've got a range of different forwards there, haven't they, who all do something a little bit different. Although I have seen a few supporters questioning Batchelor's impact at the moment, and he doesn't seem to be having the same impact with ball in hand, but in terms of defence, he's getting through a hell of a lot of work. He's, I think he's fourth in Super League for tackles made, and he's definitely first for most marker tackles. So it's not through lack of effort, but I can understand why some supporters will be questioning when he gets the ball in hand and then he's the opportunity for him to get, because he doesn't seem to be making as many meters or breaks. But again, that will come with time.
Yeah, I think what a lot of fans see, they only see the attack element of the game, don't they? We've all been guilty of it at some point in the past. You see the attack element because you want to see your team scoring points, but sometimes you don't see the dirty work that some of these players do. Work on the pitch that other players don't want to do sometimes. An example of that in years gone by was something like Jason Netherton. Netherton got through all the work that nobody else wanted to do. But when he carried the ball, he might have made a yard or two. So everybody's like, oh, he don't carry the ball, does he? But they don't see the work players like that are doing in defence and at marker and really putting their effort in for the team. Batch with ball in hand at the moment is not the Batch that we saw last year, without a shadow of a doubt. But you can't fault his effort defensively. It's superb. And there's a reason that he's fourth top tackler in Super League. There's a reason for that. Yeah.
I was going to say, on against Warrington, Batchelor and Minchella, 100 tackles between them. Yeah. Batchelor, 54 tackles. Elliot Minchella, 46 tackles. So, them two alone, tackling machines. And Minchella, obviously, I think he's third in Super League for tackles. So you got Batchelor and Minchella. So they're getting through a hell of a lot of graft. And I suppose that's a mantra Willie Peters has laid down, hasn't it, about defence, making sure you get your defence right. And we're definitely seeing that. I think there's still a few problems out on the edge in terms of defence. And I don't know where you stand, but what do you think to this of 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗴𝗏 moving from fullback, coming into centre, and then sometimes on the wing, and 𝗦𝗢𝗃 then interchanging, 𝗦𝗍𝘆 going to fullback? Is it a necessary change, or can you understand why he's doing it? Because there's a few times where it seems to have cost us tries, whether it's 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏 rushing out, 𝗦𝗢𝗃 tucking in too far as he's out on the wing, when normally a winger might stretch him out a little bit further. Is it a necessary change?
I don't like it, if I'm being honest. It don't provide continuity. Willie might argue that these players can play in several positions and they should be able to slot into wherever he puts them at any period in the game. But I think you need continuity from your 1 to your 13 through to your 17 right through the game. Your fullback's your fullback, your winger's your winger, your centre's your centre. And that's how it should be. I think the problem occurs for a lot of this is that the jury's still out whether 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏 was a fullback. We know he's not a fullback. We know he's never really played fullback ever, apart from about 3 games in the NRL. So he's learning how to be a fullback, really, in one of the most important positions in the team. So I think when we had a couple of errors in 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏, because I don't think when was the last time he actually caught the ball on the full? He has done it a couple of times, but it's one for letting the ball bounce, isn't he, as a fullback, which I don't see how that brings continuity to the team. I just think it's really, really difficult to get cohesion in the team. Now, if Willie believes that 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏 was the fullback, then he should be the fullback. If he's not the fullback, play Evells at fullback, and play 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗏 in the centres, which is what he is ultimately, is a centre. So I just think it's Willie. I know he's trying a few things and he's trying to get the right balance here, there and everywhere right throughout the 80 minutes of the game. But I'm just thinking to myself, from the players' perspective, surely they need cohesion and continuity in how to in any given game, really. So if he's a fullback, play him at fullback. If he's not, well, you find another place for him and you might have to sacrifice another player. I don't know. But I always think when he looks a lot better when he's playing from centre. Even in the 5 or 6 minutes that he plays at centre, he's getting over the advantage line all the time and taking 2 or 3 defenders with him. So you can see why he's played centre all his life. But again, he makes meters coming from fullback as well. So it's a tough one for Willie. It's a tough one. He's been signed on precedent that he's going to play fullback.
Yeah, it's going to be either a masterstroke and it's going to something that pays dividends, throughout the season, or it might be something that Willie Peters got wrong. I've seen a few people question whether 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗏's coming into centre because he's not fit and the need moving from fullback. I tend to disagree with that because I just think if he's not fit, Willie Peters isn't probably the type of coach who'll carry his players. You're either fit or you're not. So I don't think he'd be shifting around the whole team to accommodate him. So I do think it's a tactical switch, whether it's because he wants to see Evells at fullback because he's got the pace. So we've seen a few times, haven't we, where we've had kicks put in behind us and we've come up short and not been able to read that play and then recover from it. So whether it's moving Evells there with his pace, I think it's definitely to strengthen us in defence in terms of putting 𝗬𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏 and 𝗦𝗢𝗃𝗀𝗏𝗏 out to the wing. But And hey, I mean, 𝗻𝗂𝗃, obviously we saw the try he scored coming in from that position. So yeah, for me though, Scott, and we all, the jury's still out on whether it's something we actually need to do, because like you said, I just don't think it grows continuity and familiarity between the players. So I'm sure though 𝗬𝗚𝗏𝗏𝗧 will continue with it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens against Huddersfield on Saturday.
I'm sure there's not an element of this, but I sometimes wonder if Willie's having a few doubts as well. And he might be as a coach, you know, if he's seeing a couple of errors in players that he's asked them to do a job and they're not doing, it might be that, well, we need to switch this for the next 5-6 minutes. As you say, it might tighten us up a bit on the edges. But I think Willie's a little bit, maybe even he's a little bit, you know, he don't really know what his best system is yet. And that's well within his rights, because it's a new team and it's a new system and it's new players, and I get that, but yeah, I think he needs to find it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, as we record this is prior to the squad announcement, which will be later today. But if you listen to 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's pre-match press conference, he said the squad's fully fit, no players with any injury issues. So we expect to go. We've probably got the same squad as what's been named for the previous 2 rounds of Super League fixtures. Do you think there's any need to change the 18-man squad that we might see against Huddersfield, or do you think he's going to persevere with the same group of players, and that would probably allude to the fact that 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏 wouldn't play and it'd be 𝗵𝗆𝗆𝗏 who keeps his right wing spot, and the bench would be 𝗀𝗂𝗽𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗃, 𝗂𝗡𝗏, luckily whether he changes his starting props, who knows? But I don't. Do you know what? For me, I don't think there's any need to change, Scott. I think I think it's clear to me that this is our strongest. The 2 sides we saw against Salford and Warrington, they're 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's strongest sides. I think maybe you could say 𝗬𝗆𝘆𝗏 and 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗏. There's a bit of competition there. Who starts on that right wing spot, but on the flip side, I think what 𝗬𝗆𝗆𝗏's has done, he's definitely not let anybody down, so it's hard to displace him. Do you expect any changes for Huddersfield?
Not really. I think he'll go with the same 17. I think Staunton will be 18th man again. I think it'll be the exact same lineup that played against Warrington, without a doubt. I don't really see anybody else really forcing the way into that 17-18 really. It'll go with the same squad, I'm sure. I mean, that is his strongest 17-18 without a doubt, I think, as well. As you said, the only toss of a coin would be, does he play 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 instead of 𝗵𝗆𝗆𝗏? But I think 𝗵𝗆𝗆𝗆's has done okay. I think he's done all right, you know. And you also, if he wants to go with this, put 𝗵𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗏 at fullback for a little bit of the game as well. He's got a natural fullback in 𝗵𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗏 if he needs to do that, whereas 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is not a natural fullback. He might have played there a handful of times, maybe for Salford, but you know, at least 𝗵𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗆𝗏 is a fullback, so he can go there if need be. So I don't see many changes. I think it'll be the same 17. Staunton will be 18th man. We'll go with the same, I think.
Yeah, Staunton 18th man against Warrington. Talk in the week, Scott, of him departing the Robins, out contract at the end of the season and potentially moving to Wakefield. Staunton has always been a player who's never quite been able to cement that starting spot in the side, as he's always been the one who seems to have made way for other players coming in. I mean, I think he's only 24. He's a young English forward. But the fact he's coming to the end of his contract, he's either going to want probably more money. So we're in a salary cap sport. That doesn't always mean it's going to happen, which is why then other teams start sniffing around, because if they're able to offer him more money, and obviously they're able to offer regular starting rugby. But Matty Staunton's one player that I'd like to see remain at the Robins, because he's a player who I think has still got a huge amount of potential. And 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, as mentioned before, he doesn't see forwards coming into their own until 28, 29. So if you imagine that, the fact he's playing regular rugby league now, or has been for the last couple of seasons, there's still a lot more to come from him.
And you don't get young British forwards that are available all the time either. You know, so if you've got one already in the club, for me, you've got to do your best to try and keep him at the club as well. And when he has played, he never ever lets the team down. Never. You know, Staunton's another player that does a bit of the dirty work as well. He'll be around the ruck, he'll be tackling, you know, he'll be putting all the effort in. But you're right, he's never seemed to cement his place, has he? He's never become a first choice forward. He's always been on the fringes and on the edges. And he gets a game if a couple of players are injured and things like that. But I like him. I think he goes all day for you as Mike Stone. I really like him as a player. I'd like to keep him at the club. A, because as you've mentioned his age, but also because he's young and he's British, and trying to find young British English forwards is really, really difficult. And the fact we've invested quite a bit of time into him as well over the last handful of years, since he's come into the club with that gang of Bradford lads, we've really put a lot of work into him. So it'd be sad to see him go, really. Is Wakefield the right place for him, though? I don't know.
Well, I thought a bit high, and then that's not, well, I suppose it is disrespect to Wakefield, but I think I do think he's better than that. I do think he's but who knows what? There's nothing confirmed yet. It's all paper talk at the moment, so we'll see how that pans out. Another player who's moved out on loan to our dual reg partners is 𝗪𝗏𝗏. He played in a mud bath. If anyone managed to see the Wakefield Featherstone game at the weekend, absolute mud bath. A throw back to when you probably started watching rugby league, Scott.
I watched Rovers playing many of them pitches and not knowing which team was which team and which player was which player and who even had the ball sometimes, So I know people, like you said, John, on a couple of your posts, you wouldn't want to go back to that, really. I know people talk about winter rugby and it being a better game and what have you, but it was more off the cuff and the play. It was a different game, put it that way. But you wouldn't want to watch those conditions every week, would you? You really wouldn't.
Fantastic novelty value, and every now and again it's entertaining, but it's not rugby league in its purest form. It's and see what they can get away with.
It's up your jumper, smash into the opposition, and let's see how many points you can get out of the conditions. Really, a lot of the time, isn't it? Some plays the conditions better. I guess you could argue it is in any game, but in conditions like that, you're not getting free flowing rugby. That's not what you pay to see. But back in the day, the crowds that watched rugby league used to watch that regular every Sunday afternoon. So the game's evolved, hasn't it? It really has.
Yeah, another player who looks like he's departing is Phoenix 𝗀𝗚𝗏𝗏, who's apparently going on loan to Oldham. They've made some big signings, haven't they, in their quest to show up the league. So a good move for him. Hard to see where his future lies at the Robins, isn't it? Because there's a number of players in front of him, and you just can't see where his opportunity is going to come to stake a claim for first team rugby league at Hull Kingston Rovers.
No, I think Willie Peters quite likes him, actually. I think he quite likes PLT, but I think his problem is that he can't cement down an actual place. I don't know if he's a fullback. I don't know if he's a halfback. I don't know if he's a hooker. I don't know. I don't really know where his position is, because I don't think he's ever really put a marker down to say, this is where I am, this is where I play. And he's behind so many players in every single position that he does play, that I don't really ever see him really breaking in. If we're being honest and realistic, and we are heading for this top four again, top three, whatever we're aiming for, I'm not sure. And this isn't a bag on PLT, but I don't think PLT is the player that's going to take us to third or fourth. And I think that maybe him getting out, and whether it's on loan or whether he ends up with a permanent deal somewhere, maybe that's the best move for him at this point in his career, maybe.
Yeah. So the Robins travel down the M62 on Saturday to take on Huddersfield Giants in round 5 of Super League. Preceding that, though, is the Hull Kingston Rovers women's side. They're starting their Challenge Cup campaign against Huddersfield. They're actually playing on the same pitch as the men, but they kick off at 12 p.m. So if you are able to get down there early and watch the game, make sure you do and cheer them on. Hopefully we'll get a roundup from Stacey next week about how the women's side are doing. Previous fixture called off, and of course they won their opening fixture. So if you can get down there and cheer on Ben Parker's side, because they definitely look like they've got the ability to do something special this season. So make sure you support them. Some stats for you, Scott, about why Rovers fans should be optimistic about we're getting things right. We might not be necessarily getting some of the results right, but we're starting to get things right. We're third in the table in terms of more tackles, first for marker tackles. We're fourth in the table for tackle busts, first for attacking kicks, fourth in the table for carries, third for meters made, second in the table for average gain, fifth for clean breaks, first in the table for dummy runs, fifth in the table for offloads. We've actually given away the least amount of penalties in Super League this season. And one thing that really highlights it to me about how we're trying things, but they're not necessarily coming off, but they probably will, is that we're fared for errors made. So we've actually fared in the table for the most amount of errors made. So what that says to me is, you know, some stats, and they probably don't mean a lot to a lot of people, but the fact we're high up in the table for so many of them shows that we're not far away from where we want to be.
No, absolutely bang on. And that's why I think we should be 4 from 4 with those stats. But that last one you've just said, third in the table for most errors, is the reason we're 2 from 4. You know, so you've just got to get that one right, and you aren't going to be far away. You aren't going to be far away from winning most of your matches. And we're the Salford and Warrington games, we're in them. We're in them right to the death. You know, it's just a case of just getting it over the line, and cutting out these forced errors and unforced errors as well. You know, so all the stats, and you know, stats are stats, aren't they? At the end of the day, the game's won by points, but you know, the stats suggest that we should be certainly well up there with the best of them. And come the end of the season, we will be. We will be. We just need to eradicate these little few minorities in our game. If we can eradicate them out, then we aren't going to be far away. We're not.
No. Scott, Huddersfield away, is it a game that you look forward to?
Not really. No, I don't particularly like going to Huddersfield. I don't mind going to watch Old City there because you get a full stadium and a sellout. But when it's a rugby league match, it's just a soulless ball, isn't it? You know, I know Rovers fans, we do our bit to create an atmosphere and what have you. But apart from the kettle drum, the kettlebell, whatever it is that bloke's got in their end, it's just an awful place to go. And I don't think our record there's that great, is it? I think I remember us winning there probably 2 or 3 times over the last 10, 12 years maybe. Our record there is not great. Although last season we put in a great performance there last season to win that game at Huddersfield last year towards the back end of the season, and it kicked us on for the playoffs. But you know, it's not a happy hunting ground for us. I don't know how good Huddersfield are really. They seem to have started slow, but I watched them at Cass. I watched the Cass Huddersfield game. That's the game I chose to watch on Friday night on Sky, just to watch Huddersfield to see how decent they were. I'm not sure if Huddersfield were good or Cass were that bad. I think there was a bit of both in there. Again, conditions and heavy pitch and what have you. But Huddersfield looked quick. They scored some good tries. They've got some good players, certainly in the spine and around the ruck. So it'll be a tough place to go. It always is for us. I think we could be top of the league and Huddersfield could be 12th and they're still turn us over. It's just one of them places, isn't it, where you go and just don't enjoy going. I don't know about you, but it's not my favourite hunting ground, to be honest.
No, if I was gonna rank them from top to bottom in terms of my favourite away games, Huddersfield would be I think competing for relegation, because it is not, it's just like you said, it's just not one that gets you excited. But to be fair, there's going to be a good number of Rovers supporters travelling over. So the club had announced that over 800 tickets have been sold. So you're expecting, you know, what, 1,000 Rovers fans travelling down the M62 to support Hull Kingston Rovers. So let's hope that they come up with a performance to give us all something to sing and shout about. Huddersfield this season, first game they beat Leigh 16 points to 8. Then they lost to St Helens 28-0, lost to Wigan 30 points to 16, and then they absolutely hammered Cass. And I must say, this Cass side is a very, very poor, in the same bracket as London, although for different reasons. But that Cass side, nah, not for me. And the fact that Huddersfield ran in 50 points past them, you're right. Does it mean that Huddersfield were great, or does it mean Cass were really bad? I think, like you said, there's probably an element of both in that. And Leroy Cudjoe rolling back the years at loose forward now, being led around by Adam Clune and Ollie Russell. We've seen Adam Swift have a good start to the season. He's got 3 tries already. We saw what he did for that lot last season. Chris Hill still going strong in the middle. I think he's, what is he now? 38? I think he's 38. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for me, this is a bit of a interesting test because we don't know quite what to expect from him.
No, and that's the thing. We're going into it blind to a certain extent, aren't we? You know, the Wigan turned them over, Saints turned them over, which you'd expect Wigan and Saints to turn Huddersfield over anyway. So they've beaten Leigh and Castleford. But you don't, as I say, I'm not really sure about Leigh yet. Castleford look really poor, really poor. I don't see them winning many games at all, Cass, this year. So it's hard to judge really how good Huddersfield are. It'll be a better pitch at Huddersfield, to be fair. I was at Huddersfield just a few weeks ago when City played there. I went to the match there to see City play Huddersfield Town, and the pitch looked pretty decent considering all the rain that the country's had. Looked okay, so we might be playing on a bit of a better pitch, a bit of a firmer ground. Whether that'll benefit us or Huddersfield or both, we'll find out. But it's always a tough place to go. They always seem to turn us over. I don't know why, but we just don't seem to get up for it at Huddersfield. But if we've got aspirations of top 4 again, top 3, whatever, you've got to be going to Huddersfield and winning matches. You have, simple as, And if we lost again on Saturday, well, it'd be the exact same start to last season, wouldn't it? 1-2, lost 3. That's what we did last season, and we did all right come the end of the season. But you've got to be going to Huddersfield and winning the game, haven't you? Really, if you've got aspirations.
And what became apparent, Scott, at the end of last season is, you don't want to be chasing it. So we're talking about chasing results in fixtures, in games. We don't want to be chasing the playoffs coming the end of the season. We want to be in there and keeping ourselves in them playoff spots. I think that's what's important. And you definitely don't want to go 3 from 3. And for me, I think it is a really good test, this Huddersfield game, to see where they're at. And if they get the completion rate, I think anything over 90%, I think will see Rovers to victory, cut out some of these errors. I think one thing though, and we can't escape it, that could affect the game, Scott, is goal kicking again. We saw against Warrington, Jez Litton, when he went off, 𝗲𝗚𝗏 took over kicking duties, and he can kick the ball. There's no doubt about that. But I don't think he's the answer to our goal kicking problems. And one player who I spoke to Craig Eskrett about was Mikey Lewis, and I'm surprised that he hasn't took the mantle on of goal kicking duties. We've seen him do it before. And his on-field kicking game's definitely improved. And I'm just surprised he's not one who's been thought about or tested, or maybe where he has in training and he's not pulled up any trees.
Maybe that is the case. I mean, I think Jez is going to be the kicker once he's on the pitch. But the problem is, once he's spelled with 𝗪𝗂𝗏, then you're saying, right, who's kicking the goal if we do score? To be fair to 𝗵𝗏𝗏, I mean, I think every kick that he's taken have been right out on the touchline as well. He hasn't had any kick that's been sort of central or even just to the side of the post. Every kick that 𝗵𝗏𝗏 has taken has been right on the touchline. But he's never looked convincing when he's approached to strike the ball. You just know that it ain't going over, this kick. But you're right with Mikey. I think maybe they're just trying to take a bit of pressure off Mikey. He's got a lot of other things to do on the pitch. Loading the kicking onto him, the goal kicking onto him, is that another thing that he doesn't need in his game? But if he's only doing it when Jez is off the pitch, then why not? Jez, I think Jez's completion rate's been superb since he started kicking, to be fair to the kid. So if you just say to Mikey, look, when Jez is off, you take them. But when Jez is on, Jez takes them. What's wrong with that? I don't see a problem with that. And it's not really putting added pressure per se onto Mikey, is it, that kicking a goal? He either gets it or he doesn't. And
the kind of pressure
yeah, absolutely. And other players, but again, I'm not dissing 𝗵𝗏𝗏 here, but 𝗵𝗏𝗏 ain't kicking them. So if Mikey has a go and he misses, well, you've not lost anything, have you? Because you're going to miss anyway. So you might as well have somebody who can at least kick a goal, kicking the goals, so to speak.
Yeah, I did see some outrageous comments after the Warrington defeat about potentially dropping Tyrone May to accommodate Ben Roberts purely for the fact he can kick the ball. I mean, there's no doubt his time will come in the red and white Wolves and Rovers, but there's I don't think you're dropping Tyrone May to accommodate Ben Roberts based on the fact he's got a better kicking percentage. No way. No,
it's not. You're not going to do that. You're not playing a player just because they can kick the ball. You're just not. So. It's just a case of riding it out. We've got better since the derby, and 𝗬𝗂𝗍𝗏 missed all them kicks. Jez's strike rate's pretty decent when he's on the pitch. He hasn't missed that many, has he? He's done all right as Jez. So it's just when Jez is off the pitch who kicks the goals. Because no disrespect to 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏 ain't the answer. But as I said, every kick he's had has been on the touchline. So it's a tough one. We're going to have to find a way around it. We're going to have to find somebody who can kick goals while Jez is off the pitch. Simple as that. Or Jez does 80 minutes, but that ain't going to happen. But why can't he do 80 minutes in the modern game? Maybe you can, but 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏 and Jez on the pitch at the same time sometimes works. But I don't know. The kicking's going to be a problem for us. We haven't still got an out-and-out goal kicker, have we? We're still, and even with Jez, he's not an out-and-out kicker. you know, we're still scraping around the barrel for a kicker, even though Jezzy's completion that's pretty decent at the moment.